Here at Film Noir, I have a set, a uniform, and occasionally a partner or two. It's a simple operation, but I do my best to make sure it runs smoothly. In that interest, there's something I should tell you about today's video. The film I'll be discussing is the live-action remake of 101 Dalmatians, but someone vandalized this DVD, replacing the second one on the front cover and spine with the number 2. Some joker out there probably thinks they're real clever. It's an unfortunate blemish to my normal standards of presentation, but it won't stop me. I'll do my job, just as I always have. Now you might be thinking, Steve, why didn't you just buy an unblemished DVD on the internet? Supply and demand, my friends. This DVD consistently sells for more than $20 on the internet. The store I bought it from only charged me $10. What would you do in my position? Buy it on VHS? Wait a minute, that's the cover on the VHS? That's so much cooler than this one. Crud. 101 Dalmatians isn't a movie I watched to death like I did Toy Story, The Sandlot, or Star Wars. In fact, I actually have a much clearer memory of its sequel. But I had occasion to rewatch it recently when a friend of mine suggested that I review this. Unlike today, where you can't sneeze without someone handing you a new take on an animated classic, this 1996 version was produced at a time where a live-action Disney remake was still a pretty novel thing. As a kid, I saw the trailer for this movie on one of my VHS tapes several times, and I may have actually watched it at some point, but I don't remember the experience. That's true of quite a few movies I've reviewed, isn't it? I digress. Let's dig into the live-action remake of 101 Dalmatians. We open in the London home of Roger and his dog Pongo. Wow, impressive and unnecessary. Roger, my dude, if you can rig all of this and train your dog to use it, chances are you've got the skills to do your morning routine all by yourself. Roger is an American game designer instead of an English musician, and as a fun little Easter egg, the game he's working on pays homage to the animated film. Unfortunately, the opinion of the kid testing it is very important.
He's picked the top-selling game every year.
And he's not impressed.
Potentially good graphics, reasonably entertaining premise, the dog's well conceived and the environments are engaging. But I'm not interested in a game that has a chubby little dog catcher as the bad guy.
What if there were a better villain? Someone you could really hate?
I can already tell what this is foreshadowing, and I can't wait to see it. Next, we meet Anita. In this version, she works as a fashion designer for Cruella de Vil.
I did leopard spots in the 80s.
Well, Dalmatian spots are a little different, aren't they?
Cozy.
Cuddly.
Classic.
Less trashy.
Exactly.
Let's be frank. Getting Cruella wrong would instantly destroy this movie. Thankfully, they didn't. Glenn Close is committed to this role and does a fantastic job bringing the spirit of the animated character to life. She might even do it a little too well.
It is rather amusing, isn't it?
What is?
Well, if we make this coat, it would be as if I were wearing your dog. Woof, woof.
Not to suggest Cruella was ever subtle to begin with, but next to this, the animated character almost feels understated. While out for a walk, Pongo spots Anita and, more importantly, her Dalmatian, Purdy. Because I guess this version thinks it's too high and mighty to use the name Perdita. Pongo gives chase and takes Roger on a wild ride. Did I mention John Hughes wrote the script? Crazy stunts from this era of film have always felt special because they look just within the realm of being possible in real life, even if the odds of them actually happening are astronomically low. But is their inclusion really warranted in this of all things? In the original film, Pongo just dragged Roger through the park a bit and made sure they bumped into Anita. This is basically the same event, but it's exaggerated by some really weird circumstances. And if somehow the stunts weren't crazy enough, how about Roger mistaking Purdy for Pongo and almost stealing her?
Today is not a good day to threaten me, ma'am.
I don't care if it's a good day or a bad day. I'll hit you nonetheless.
Whatever.
Okay, I give you a good and proper warning.
Look, I've had...
Release my dog or I'll hit you again.
Your dog. Hello, Pongo.
If I didn't already know that these characters would become a couple, would this feel more hostile or less? Purdy follows Pongo's example.
Look out!
So Roger and Anita end up swapping romantic subtext together in front of a fireplace.
I think my dog is in love.
I think mine is too.
They're going to be broken-hearted when you leave.
Then the subtext becomes just text.
Do you want another cup of marriage?
Excuse me?
Tea?
I'm well aware that love works very quickly in Disney movies. But even so, this has to be some kind of record. In the original film, we could at least assume a passage of time between their first meeting and deciding to get married. Here, it's not ambiguous at all. Roger proposed to Anita the day they met. However, there is also a dog wedding. And I just can't find it in me to be upset about that. Next, the movie introduces its versions of Horace and Jasper, Cruella's grunts, picking up a Siberian tiger skin from... Skinner. Yes, I know, but he's barely in the movie. I'm not going to waste time whining about his name.
Sight of all these deceased creatures gives me a shrinky winky.
Okay, I really hate that line. Then we meet Nanny, who drops a few hints about how to tell when someone's pregnant.
It's the smile we wear when we're guarding a precious secret. And now that she's living for others as well as herself, she's eating more.
Both of them? Why, the odds of that happening are about as good as, I don't know, a physician and a veterinarian having their offices right next to each other. That is to say, stranger things have happened. For example, your boss visiting your house without warning and snooping through your mail.
Cruella!
Anita, darling!
Cruella also criticizes Roger's career.
Those horrible noisy things that children play with on their television, someone designs them. What a senseless thing to do with your life.
Anita's marriage.
Tell me, darling, you married him for his dog.
And her pregnancy.
I'm so sorry.
We're very excited about it, Cruella.
You can't be serious.
However, she is happy about the puppies, which is perfectly normal for most people, but Cruella de Vil is not most people. But then they're actually born, and she complains again.
They're mongrels. No spots. No spots at all.
This from the woman who claims...
I live for fur. I worship fur.
Then again, Cruella not caring about the animals beyond the stuff she can make with them is a pretty fitting quality for her character. The heck? I didn't make a joke just now. Hello? Why did you add that sound effect? I'm waiting. How is this conversation happening? Do not change the subject, Steve. What joke did I make? Oh, fitting. You know, because Cruella and clothes. Fitting. The lady kills puppies, Steve. That's kind of messed up. Yeah. Well, I'd better get back to it, so I'll talk to you later, me. No. You're not getting rid of me that easily. Steve, don't you dare delete... Okay. Where was I? Roger and Anita won't sell the puppies. Cruella does not take this well.
You're fired. You're finished. You'll never work in fashion again. I'm through with all of you. I'll just even. Just wait. You'll be sorry. You fools!
Several weeks pass, and the puppies now have their spots.
Come on, you two.
Good call. I don't like that one either. Although I actually haven't watched that particular movie in so many years. Oh no, it's happening again. Steve, one review at a time, please. Roger and Anita go for a walk, giving Horace and Jasper an opening to break in, lock Nanny in a closet, and kidnap the puppies.
Evening, General. Flunk the raid. Heel, boy.
I mean, I think... Pongo!
Party!
Naturally, this is very upsetting, especially for the dogs.
They're going to do the best they can.
Yeah, for what that's worth. How are they going to find 15 little puppies in a city this size? They're even in the city. What can the police do? What can we do? What can anyone do?
Nobody's expecting you to find a silver lining, Roger, but don't talk like you've already given up. Pongo heads to the roof and starts barking. And just like that, other dogs spread the news of the missing Dalmatians all across London. And despite leaning towards realism by not having the animals talk, this version still effectively communicates the proper emotions and necessary information in a way that's easy enough to understand even if you haven't seen the animated film. The magic of storytelling, folks. Gotta say though, the way some of these animals act can be inappropriately hilarious. Tell me if I'm alone in this perception. I thought adapting a cartoon into live action was meant to quote-unquote legitimize a story so a studio can appeal to people who won't watch animated films because supposedly they're just for kids. But that way of thinking doesn't really make much sense when the grounded, realistic version of the story is doing stuff like this. While Pongo and Purdy are being led to where the puppies are, this dog mounts a rescue. Here's a rare instance in this movie where the live-action medium is actually a benefit. When you see a cartoon dog maneuvering like a pro, you think, so what? But most people know that, on average, dogs are fairly simple creatures. That makes seeing real dogs do what they do in this movie feel a lot more impressive. Back at the house, a look into Anita's portfolio reveals to the characters that Cruella might be connected to the dog napping.
She did steal the puppies, and this is why.
You did connect some dots, and kudos for that. But did you forget about the time that Cruella said this to you?
If we make this coat, it would be as if I were wearing your dog.
That's especially important because Anita designing the coat makes her an indirect contributor to what's happening. I'm not trying to reassign blame to Anita. That would be twisted. But it's possible to interpret that she feels guilty for the part she played, something that is wholly unique to this version of the story. And that is how you do subtext. While Horace and Jasper are distracted by wild animals,
Get out of my truck! Yeah!
the puppies start sneaking out. Okay, I would normally complain about the toilet humor, especially because that puppy's name is Whizzer. But I've got a bigger fish to fry. Jasper slipped on a wet magazine. Even if it's flimsy, that is an excuse. But Horace, without slipping, being distracted, or anything, just ran straight ahead and collided with the banister. Well, they are the bumbling henchmen. No. This is the kind of gaffe you see extras make in the background, the kind that most people will never even notice. This is not something you should have a prominent character do where everybody can see it. The puppies slide down a drain pipe, and the CGI used for these shots is extremely obvious. But in the interest of keeping animal rights groups quiet, that's probably a good decision. After some delays, thanks once again to the wild animals,
Hey, see?
Cruella, Jasper, and Horace head out to search for the puppies. Meanwhile, a puppy named Lucky gets left behind because he was napping at the time of the rescue, and he ends up coming face to face with Skinner. I probably should have had this warning earlier, but if actual animals in peril feels a little too real for you, stick with the animated version. Luckily, the only hits that land in this movie are reserved for the humans. After a few more Home Alone-style hijinks, Horace and Jasper are arrested.
This is lovely, isn't it? Nice and warm.
In a really weird way, this is kind of wholesome. In service of poetic justice, Cruella gets roughed up by the barnyard animals. She doesn't seem injured despite getting kicked by a horse, but she does get covered in many variants of filth.
In a moment, I'll have what I came for, while all of you will end up as sausage meat, alone on some sad plastic plate, dead and medium red, no friends, no family, no pulse. Cruella de Vil has the last laugh.
You know, if it weren't for fiction bending our perceptions of reality to help us accept the scenarios we're presented with in movies... Actually, no. This is a pretty sad display regardless.
We have a warrant for your arrest.
Oh. Is there something wrong?
The Dalmatians return to town, and the movie gets an excuse to write its title into the script.
98 pups. The 2 adults make it 100 even.
Make that 101 Dalmatians, sir. So far, nobody has called to claim the other puppies. Now, they need a home, or, well, they go to the pound.
Come on, you guys. Fashion mogul arrested for dog napping. 84 Dalmatian puppies up for adoption. The feel-good headline has been gift-wrapped for you. Of course, Roger and Anita end up keeping them all. But they're gonna need way more space. How do they get it? Well, let's check out the latest build of Roger's game. I may have known that was coming, but oh, what a beautiful sight.
Excellent villain, mate.
The film ends by showing us Roger and Anita's child, as well as the plantation they live on with all of the Dalmatians. All of that from one successful video game. I'm in the wrong business.
Speaking of children...
Roger, darling, I've got the most wonderful news.
So that was the live-action 101 Dalmatians. I didn't love or hate this movie on its own, but it's probably not a good sign that my favorite part about reviewing it was watching the animated film. The casting was good, especially for the villains. Sometimes the writing felt over the top, but the actors always did their jobs well. And in fairness, there was once a time I revered John Hughes' Home Alone-style physical comedy. If young Steve ever did watch this movie, he probably had a decent time with it. But I'm the more jaded present-day Steve, and I say... it was a little much. The non-villains aren't super engaging, and I think that's because they were never meant to be a focal point in this narrative. But the animals don't talk in this version, which forces the humans to pick up the slack. Telling this story in live action was certainly a neat experiment in whether or not it could be done convincingly. It also ensured that this film had a unique vibe to it, rather than just being an expensive CGI twin of the film it was based on. But it's really hard not to hold that choice against it. The talking animals in the animated version felt integral to the emotional core of the story, and nothing that the live-action version did was a good enough substitute. Their rich characterization allows a stronger connection to the Dalmatians' struggles. It also made the rescue effort feel like the whole community was banding together in a crisis. Having not seen the animated film in a really long time, the pure sense of compassion on display was so heartwarming it genuinely caught me off guard. As for the humans, they do contribute to the story, but only when necessary. This made their contributions feel more valuable while still keeping the focus on the dogs. The performances are simple, but nuanced, and the hijinks are less extreme. They felt more like real people than the real people did. Look, despite some flaws, the live-action version gets the job done. If it piques your interest, or if you just really like dogs, and there are some great dog clips in this movie, I'd say consider checking it out. But it's hard to give an enthusiastic recommendation when the animated film is superior in pretty much every way. And now, on to the plot hole. Could Anita have sued Cruella for wrongful termination of her job? Based on my research into the UK's Employee Rights Act of 1996, the answer to both questions is most likely yes, and this film does indeed take place in 1996. Of course, Cruella ended up in jail, and Roger's game was successful, and after all that emotional distress, it's very much possible that Anita just did not want to deal with Cruella anymore. But you know, I really think she should have. It may very well have prevented the tragedy of 102 Dalmatians. Cruella coming back, I mean. I can't comment on whether the film itself is a tragedy. I haven't actually seen... No. Holy sh...
You ought to be locked up and never released. The world was such a wholesome place until Cruella, Cruella de Vil.